time it is. So 7, 365, cherish our moments that I'm alive. Here to do more than barely survive. I got a tribe, I'm here to revive the people, the people that grow and the people the streets. Some of the seeds, water and weed, power don't hold it to me. Religion high, I'm on the drill. Ain't no confusion, the issue is real. But we too dependent on how we get meals. Even with meals, you subject to shortages. That's how we go in our body like choices. Like to the garden, like to production, stick to the code. Under construction, build up like better, minus corruption. Growing hard, you know what time it is. Time it is. Stick to the script, you know what line it is. Time it is. I know you see me, but the climate is. Time it is. Freedom to freedom, what time it is. Growing hard, you know what time it is. Time it is. Stick to the script, you know what line it is. Time it is. I know you see what the climate is. Time it is. Freedom to freedom, what time it is. Time it is. I know you see what time it is. Peace, family. This is your boy, Farmer Brown MC. Some of you know me as Trevor Claiborn. And here today, I was going through some of my books. One of my homeboys reached out to me and said, man, I didn't know you had books like that. So right now I got about 20 titles. You can check out some of my books on Amazon.com. Yeah. These are just some of the titles, Trevor Claiborn at Amazon.com. But I got on my book journey starting back in 2008. And so it was kind of eerie. I was going through my book, W.A.N.D.A.P, We're No Different as People. And again, these are receipts, right? And so thinking about the events of 2020 up to the present, just to kind of give you a date, you see 2008. So this book, W.A.N.D.A.P, originally is talking about cells in a lung community. And so the concept of W.A.N.D.A.P, we are no different as people, is talking about how different cells in the body have different functions. And so my skin cells have a very different function than my nerve cells, have a very different function than my red blood cells, white blood cells. We even have viruses and bacteria in our bodies. So saying that to say, I was going through my woke stage back in 2008. But as I was flipping through this book, it was rather eerie how what hit the world in 2020 actually was written in this book in 2008. So to give you kind of a background of this book, and obviously, shameless promotion, once you go check out my book, W.A.N.D.A.P, Hemo versus Blanco. So when I first wrote this book, the concept was the cells in the community had started working against each other. We had these nerve cells. His name was Ayush. He's got the one eye, right? He had a lot of themes in this book. And so basically he was creating contention with all of the different cells. And Ayush was a nerve cell. This is the cell is pretty much like the government of your body that dictates the movements of the rest of the cells in the body. The nerve cell is what's going to tell your red blood cells to bring oxygen back and forth from the lungs. When you think about your white blood cells, that's your police force in your body. They identify ops and get rid of them, right? When we think about immune health. I'm trying to be very codified in the way I speak about it. But saying that to say the lungs started collapsing. There was a problem in the body of W.A.N.D.A.P. What W.A.N.D.A.P represents is the world. Tierra Madre, Tiamat, Mother Earth, right? And so all of these cells were embodied as people, the people of the world, and all of them had a different role to play. And the book was talking about how the nerve cells had this conspiracy with these alien diatoms. I don't know if you see these little characters. They look like stars. You can kind of see this phallic thing. Like I said, I was going through my woke era at that time, and it's 2008. A lot of people speak through, when you think about the Washington Monument, when you think about the concept of an obelisk, or what do they say, pissing matches. And so these alien diatoms came here and they were conspiring with the nerve cells, the government, like, hey, we got a better way for the body to function. And so, like I said, it just so happened because I don't have a medical background. Like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist per se, but I like to read and I like to connect the dots. La 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 la. And so, long story short, and so the nerve cells were colluding with these alien diatoms, these otherworldly beings that ultimately wanted to take over the body, similar to a parasite. That's what a parasite does. I find a host, I get all the nutrients out of it, and then once I'm done with it, I'm done. And then as a result, and I'm not going to give you the whole story, but as a result, and so the red blood cells and white blood cells end up going to war with one another because they didn't know that it was another. They didn't know the nerve cells was putting this contention in motion. And so after the nerve cell had done his dirt, the diatoms were able to come in and do and have their way now. Now that I've weakened the body, now that you're no longer doing what your natural purpose is within the body, I can come in and weaken you. And as the red blood cells and white blood cells were having their fight, the viruses, the viruses came in. They was like, well, okay, the red blood cells and white blood cells aren't doing their job. Well, the nerve cells went to them and said, hey, since the cells aren't doing their job, why don't you viruses come in and make up for what they're not doing? You think about the lockdowns. You think about people don't want to work the same way people used to work anymore. Once you've had that time to sit at home, reevaluate, the concept of essential versus non-essential. It changed a lot of work dynamics when we think about the work that is being done within the body. And so as the cells were fighting, the viruses came in to do the work. The bacteria came in to do the work of the cells. And we know in a functional body, I probably don't want bacteria doing the work that my red blood cells or white blood cells are supposed to do, right? Like I said, this is 2008. I was 28. You can kind of see the picture on there. This was long before W.A.N.D.A.P, right? Or long before Farmer Brown. Fast forward, we hear this concept of great reset. I just think it's very eerie. Once the final takeover, you think about Klaus Schwab. Once they had been overcome, the diatoms were actually comfortable in coming out telling you this is what's been done. Your nerve cells sold you out. I told these nerve cells because nerve cells typically die after 100 years. And so these diatoms had told the nerve cells that you'll live longer if you do what we want to do. We want you to redirect the work of the cells in the body because we'll show you a much better way. In nerve cells, you can live forever and ever and ever. And so once that disruption had taken place, like I said, they came in and took over. And so once the disruption had occurred, they were now able to come out and be open. Hey, this is what we're doing to you. Long story short, I ain't gonna hold you up, but it was just very eerie, family. This is why I encourage you to get this book. Can somebody say "Great Reset"? So this is the grave of W.A.N.D.A.P. What ended up happening, and like I said, this is a kid's book. I doubt any kids are looking on here. But as a parent, auntie, uncle, grandparent, this is a great book for your kid. It's actually educational. This is actually the first. This is the first draft that I actually published in 2008, and so now I've upgraded it. So now it's colorful, very colorful. You can see the different characters. I made a few modifications to the storyline, but like I said, it tells a very interesting and relevant story just to the way society operates. We all have a role to play, and to the degree that we embrace the role that we have, cells look very different. A red blood cell looks very different than a white blood cell, looks very different than a nerve cell, looks very different than a skin cell, looks very different from a virus. And all of these have a role to play within the broader body. But when you let external, like the diatom right there, when you let external forces come in and corrupt your governing, your nerve cells, it throws the whole body off of balance. And so when we think about the economics, the moving of resources, the allocation of resources, uh, it's inevitable to have a great reset. And I just think it was very interesting that at that time it was the lung community. My 28-year-old mind, I could have said the heart, I could have said the digestive system, I could have said the brain, but it was the lung. And so, like I said, as I was just kind of reflecting on this book, because my homeboy said, hey, man, you need to let people know you got books in the first place. I'm like, man, this really told a story. And what if? What if? Because at the end of the story, they didn't die. What do they say? Energy doesn't die. It just it takes on a different form. You see, I'm trying to flip through the pages here. But basically, they were reincarnated. And so you see the different color red bird, the white bird, the red bird, and the blue bird standing on the grave of W.A.N.D.A.P. This represents the Great Reset. And so as they were, the cells that they were, okay, they no longer function as cells. But after this flashpoint, this great reset, they came back as something else. And then in the ground, you see the worm. And the worm is like, okay, it's the viruses. In the original body, the right blood cell got rid of the viruses. And so the worm has the red blood cell and white blood cell in the form of the bird are talking to one another. They're like, hey, I'm kind of hungry. Uh, what meal do you have in mind? And so the virus, what was originally a virus, turned into a worm. And he realized, okay, here we go again with this same cycle. Now, I know I was kind of scattered in this approach, but all seriousness, family, this is a great book. It's available on Amazon.com. It's W.A.N.D.A.P, Hemo versus Blanco. There are very logical, realistic uh, medical information that you can learn from this book because it goes into the process of cells, how many cells are actually in the body. It talks about what these cells do. It actually talks about what are the ramifications of these cells not doing their natural purpose. And so, like I said, this is a great book for the family to read. This was actually tailored to third through fifth graders, so they can definitely understand. But for the woke family, so to speak, I think this is very telling about what we see that started happening in 2020. How the world just changed, the body changed, the cells that perform certain functions in the body stopped. Whether it was through the auspice of a lockdown, whether it was through okay, you got to walk this way versus that way if you want to get in this building or that building. A lot of rules changed that came directly from the nerve cells, the governing body. As we've dug deeper into okay how all of this took place, we realized that there's possibly other other entities involved in influencing the nerve cells. So saying that to say, family, this is W.A.N.D.A.P by Trevor Claiborn. It's available on Amazon.com. And also, I got this cool coloring book that goes with it. So it's a whole series. If you're interested, I actually have a few copies left of the original. This is going to be worth something when history looks back. So, I originally dedicated these to my nieces and nephews. They're a lot older now. But as history looks back, there's a lot of unusual prophecy in these books here. So, family, like I said, W.A.N.D.A.P, Hemo versus Blanco by Trevor Claiborn. Check it out on Amazon.com. And like my homie said, man, you gotta let the people know that you got these books. So I do have other titles that you can find on Amazon.com. A lot of them are focused around ag, food, and environment, and just character building. So with that, like I say, family, if you really want to know something, learn how to grow something. Peace.